You ever have one of those neighbors that you just know is going to be a problem? For me, that was Linda. She moved into our suburban neighborhood in Pinewood Creek 3 years ago, and from the moment she unpacked her first box, she acted like she owned the block. It wasn't just her attitude, it was the clipboard. She carried it like it was an extension of her spine, strutting around in yoga pants and a Bluetooth earpiece, jotting down notes like she was running surveillance for the FBI. Turns out, she wasn't with the FBI, but she was the newly elected president of the HOA. Now, I've dealt with annoying neighbors before, but Linda, she was in a league of her own. And what started as a petty HOA feud exploded into something no one could have predicted. Illegal surveillance, crypto mining, federal investigations, and it all started with my barn roof. Yeah, my barn. See, I've got this rustic red barn out back. It's old, sure, but sturdy, and I use it to store tools, wood, and my prized antique tractor. Nothing fancy, just practical. But apparently, my barn wasn't aesthetically harmonious with the neighborhood. At least that's what the anonymous HOA violation letters started saying. No signature, no official stamp, just a printed HOA logo and ridiculous complaints. One letter said the paint was too aggressive. Another said I left the barn door open too long on a breezy day. I laughed it off. I shouldn't have. One morning, I was sipping coffee and walking the yard when I saw it. A strange metallic glint on the barn roof. I grabbed my ladder, thinking maybe a bird dropped something shiny. Nope. It was a full-blown commercial-grade Wi-Fi tower, bolted to my shingles like it had always belonged there. Humming, blinking, buzzing, and, get this, it had a sticker. Property of Skylink Networks, installed by Linda R. That's right. Linda climbed onto my barn in the middle of the night, installed a tech tower, and didn't say a word. When I stormed down the street to confront her, she acted like I'd interrupted her spa day. "Oh, that?" she said, sipping herbal tea. "Technically, the HOA approved it." "Approved it?" I asked. "Show me the paperwork." She handed me a letter with her own signature, under a made-up title, Acting Infrastructure Director. I later found out she invented the role after the last HOA secretary quit, because Linda kept accusing her of subverting community order. But here's the real kicker. Linda's house sat in a Wi-Fi dead zone. She'd been griping for months about her spotty connection. So instead of, I don't know, paying for a signal booster, she decided to hijack my barn as a signal tower for the whole block. I tried to bring it up at the next HOA meeting, only to find out Linda moved the meetings online, using the signal from my roof. Her smug face froze mid-Zoom, and someone on the call quipped, "Looks like Linda's Wi-Fi finally caught up with her ego." But she muted me before I could respond, and moved to officially ratify her tower as a community emergency resource. The vote passed 3-2. Guess who voted yes? Linda, her husband Rick, and a neighbor who later admitted Linda bribed her with free premium bandwidth. So, I did what any rational person would do. I shut off the power to the barn. And within hours, Linda was on my lawn, screaming into her tablet like a tech prophet. "The node is dead. You've endangered connectivity." She handed me a laminated chart titled Linda's Community Network Blueprint and accused me of violating neighborhood broadband protocols. When I asked her to show me where that was in the HOA charter, she pulled out a laminated flowchart with Wi-Fi symbols and said, "It's in the spirit of digital equity." That's when I knew this wasn't about the internet. It was about control. And then it rained. My barn started leaking. Turns out Linda had drilled through the shingles with lag bolts. I had damage. I had receipts. And a week's worth of text messages from Linda saying, "Just ignore the noise. It's for the greater good." I called my lawyer, Carl, a chill guy in sandals who speaks softly but litigates like a viper. When I showed him the pictures, he choked on his chamomile tea. "She's running an unlicensed install," he said. "This is trespassing, property damage, and utility theft." We sent her a cease and desist. Her response? A video email where she stood in her backyard wearing a Wi-Fi-themed hoodie, calling my barn an unofficial digital access hub, and quoting something she called the FCC's Good Neighbor Spectrum Clause. Spoiler: it doesn't exist. That's when we found it, the crypto rig. An anonymous neighbor slipped a grainy photo into my mailbox, showing a strange metallic box hidden under the antenna. With Carl's tech buddy and a pair of gloves, we opened it. Inside was a miniature mining server, quietly churning away using my power. There was even a flash drive labeled Barncoin Ledger. Turns out, Linda wasn't just broadcasting signal, she was farming crypto, using my roof, my land, my electricity, and she'd made over $14,000 in just 4 months. We called an emergency HOA meeting. The good kind, no Zoom, no agenda tampering, just neighbors and facts. I passed around photos, logs, and a clip of Linda wearing a blazer, standing next to the tower saying, "It's time we monetize the mesh." Cheryl, head of the HOA Finance Committee, nearly spit out her wine. "She's monetizing neighborhood Wi-Fi for herself?" she asked. "She's running a decentralized Ponzi scheme," Carl replied. By the next morning, the HOA voted to suspend Linda as president pending legal review. Her supporters scattered. One even apologized, saying, "I just wanted better Netflix." But Linda didn't back down. She doubled down. She called a secret revote in the community garden, where she'd previously banned my tomatoes for unauthorized vine expansion, declared herself interim president using a bylaw she made up, and even distributed ballots pre-filled with her name. Carl set the ballots on fire in his grill. But the absolute wildest part? Linda had wired a second illegal power cord from my barn to her house through the fence line. When the feds got involved, yes, the feds, they found not only unauthorized surveillance equipment and crypto hardware, but an entire network of spy cams placed around the neighborhood, hidden in birdhouses, in flower pots, even a lawn flamingo, all routed through a hacked server under her gazebo. Agent Mulligan, a guy who looked like he hadn't smiled in a decade, flipped through her files and muttered, "Well, this just turned into a federal headache." Linda was officially under investigation for illegal surveillance, crypto fraud, and utility theft, and that should have been the end. But no, she filed a lawsuit against the entire neighborhood, all 48 households, not joking. Her claim? Emotional sabotage and communal bandwidth oppression. She even accused me of barn-based aggression. The lawsuit, by the way, included a hand-drawn map with every house labeled either hostile or signal neutral. And in the affidavit, she accidentally confessed to half her crimes, so the court dismissed it in 72 hours, and she got slapped with a legal abuse watch designation. Basically, she's banned from filing lawsuits in our county unless a judge gives the okay. By the end of it all, her husband Rick left her. The HOA permanently barred her from leadership. and the ISP cut off her service entirely. No internet, no power leeching, no digital empire. We gave her one final honor, a shiny gold trophy shaped like a broken Wi-Fi symbol. We called it the Disconnect Award. And I got my barn back. So yeah, all of this started with one tower, one power switch, and a woman with more ambition than common sense. But in the end, the signal didn't win. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with a power-hungry HOA board? A neighbor who crossed the line? Or maybe someone who tried to turn a backyard into their own crypto kingdom? Tell me your story in the comments. I know I'm not the only one out here living through this madness.